العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. It's too early to talk about principles, but I want to first mention a principle, and then we reach something with this principle. And this principle is like a roadmap to the life of the Muslim. And this is something that the early generations of Islam talked about. And still in Surah Al Fatiha, or summary to what has been mentioned last night, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of Surah Al Fatiha showing us that the human beings with regarding to knowledge and acting according to the truth or the knowledge are divided into three categories. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, this is one. غير المغضوب عليهم, this is the second. ولا الضالين, and the third. This principle is العلم والعمل مستلزمان للهدى أو للهداية. That ilm or knowledge of the truth and acting according to it, definitely, no doubt, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, would lead to guidance. And the opposite of that, الجهل والهوى مستلزمان للضلالة. That al-jahl, which is ignorance, which is opposite to al-ilm, and al-hawa, following one's desire, not acting according to the knowledge, following one's desire, these two definitely will lead the person to the opposite of guidance, which is al-dalala or deviation. This is how easy this principle is. But another thing to make it more clearer, the ulama, they talk about النعمة المطلقة ومطلق النعمة. This is not a philosophical talk or anything like this, but to show that this is not just with the believers versus the disbelievers. No, within the Muslims themselves, to understand that, we have to understand what is the meaning of the absolute ni'mah or the absolute guidance, if it's correct to translate it like that, and guidance, and the absolute deviation and deviation. The reason why this is important, because the believers, those who would enter Jannah without previous punishment, they have the absolute ni'mah, the full ni'mah, the perfect ni'mah, the perfect guidance and the bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the disbelievers, those who would enter the hellfire forever, they have the absolute deviation. Right? الضلالة المطلقة, يعني the absolute deviation, that is for the disbelievers, for those who would be in the hellfire forever. But we know that there are some of the believers, some of the Muslims will enter the hellfire and then eventually they will enter Jannah. So these people, they have ni'mah, right? They don't have the absolute ni'mah, they have the ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have guidance, and at the same time they have deviation. So both are together in the same person. The ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that would save him from entering the hellfire forever if he dies in that state. But since he will be punished in the hellfire, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive him, that means he has some deviation. So within the Muslim Ummah, there is the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is the deviation together. Why this is important? So that when we look at these three categories, we have them among the Muslims. We have those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed his bounty onto them in the absolute sense. And we have those who would imitate those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was angry with, and those who are deviated. And these three categories again, الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ, they are the ones that knew the truth and they acted according to the truth. Those who are al-maghdubi alayhim, those who receive the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are the people, those who know the truth and they don't act according to the truth. And the third category, al-dallin, are the ones that does not know the truth, so as a result they would follow their desires. Because either they would follow the truth or they would follow their desires. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلِ اتَّبَعَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ بَلِ اتَّبَعَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ فمن يهدي من أضل الله وما لهم من ناصرين فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who committed zulm or injustice, they followed their desires without knowledge. The desires comes opposite to the proper knowledge, to the truth. And this is clearly mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Rum. فَلِاتَّبَعَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. اتَّبَع meaning followed. And it also shows that the human beings, no matter what they do, no matter what they think, how smart they are followers. And this is something that has been taken since Adam alayhi salam came down on the face of earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Adam alayhi salam and to the generation after that, مَنِ اتَّبَعَ هُدَيْ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. That whoever follows my guidance, they shall no fear, they shall not fear, nor they shall grieve. So from the beginning, the mithaq and the covenant was taken on Adam alayhi salam and the children of Adam, that they would follow. They would follow the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the messengers and revealed the books. If they do not follow the guidance, it doesn't mean that they're not following anything, and they would have this arrogance, and they would look at the believers. There are people who do not use their minds, they're just followers. And in reality, they are followers, but followers of their own desires. And what is the worst thing than someone following his own desires without knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the heavens and the earth. So knowing this, going back to the principle that al-ilm wal-amal mustalzimani lil-hidayah, that both knowledge and acting according to the knowledge would lead the person definitely to guidance. And since we understand very well that guidance is the most important need in the human being in their life, whether they see it now or they will definitely see it. If they don't see it in this life, they would see it at the moment of death and afterwards. And that's why when they talk about the needs of the human beings, we as Muslims, we need to set this issue very straight and very clear, and never escapes our minds and our hearts. That the most important need, that a person would rather die than to lose this need, is guidance. Why? Again, because this is what is mentioned in the most virtuous surah, which is Surah Al Fatiha, that has the most virtuous and the most important dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us how to make dua, or the best dua in Surah Al Fatiha, or the most important dua, because it's the most important surah in the Quran. So as a result of that, you won't find that the dua was, oh Allah, give me food, give me security in this life, or any of the needs that people would go after. What is mentioned, or not even, oh Allah, grant us Jannah. It is not the dua for the person to enter Jannah. It's for the person to do what would necessitate the Jannah, if it's correct to say that, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person is guided, he's the person of Jannah. He's the person that has the happiness in this life and the hereafter connected. So once we have this very clear, that this is the most important need in our life, which is ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, and then our whole entire life, this is the roadmap, if it's correct to say that we are every day making sure that we are more steadfast on the sirat al-mustaqim. And if a person slips or falls, he immediately returns and get to learn what are the provisions that we need to take to be steadfast on the sirat, because it's continuous in this life and in the hereafter. And what are the stories of the people in the past, those who were called to follow the sirat al-mustaqim and to be on it. And some of them, they were deviated, and some of them, they were on the straight path, and then they slipped away. The stories and the struggle between the truth and the falsehood. So the believers would learn from the previous experience, the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that never changes. And that the sirat, since it's very tight and sharp in the day of judgment on the top of hellfire, it is kind of the same way in this life. Kind of the same way in this life, that means you won't be able to pass it or to be steadfast on it based on your own physical abilities. People in the day of judgment, as we know that the sirat is on top of the hellfire, it is very thin, thinner than a hair, and sharp like more than a sword, as it's mentioned in some of the traditions. And it's on top of the hellfire. People would pass on it with different speeds, as we know. And they won't pass based on their abilities or their physical abilities. They would pass according to their deeds, according to the provisions that they brought with them, according to how they were steadfast on that sirat in this life that we live in. Whatever, a person, even if he lives after the age of puberty for a year or 2 years or 60 years, it doesn't matter. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most wise, gave that human being that opportunity to be steadfast on the salat on the face of earth. We need to understand that it's not also according to our physical capabilities. That means we need to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone to ask for this guidance, because how many smart people on the face of earth that are not steadfast on this salat al-mustaqim? So it needs that presence in the heart of the believers, the dua with the sincerity and the truthfulness, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide the believer to be steadfast on the salat al-mustaqim and taking the means, which is the knowledge of the truth and acting according to the knowledge of the truth. And so we have 4 things basically in this principle that we can expand on. What is knowledge? And this is a subject that we probably heard many things about it, but we need to take it serious. It's not for the people of knowledge. This is something that has to do with guidance, that we have to make sure that we are receiving at least the minimum requirement of knowledge that would keep the person steadfast on the salat al-mustaqim. And we have to know how to act according to this knowledge. And there is shayateen, and there is all forms of temptations to take the person away from following the truth, because it's not necessarily something that would fit the desire. So we need to learn about that too. And then on the other side, we need to learn about how to protect ourselves from ignorance, which is the opposite of knowledge. And anything that is not part of knowledge, that means it's part of ignorance. Even if people beautify it, make it seems nice, and a person can be very eloquent in speech, but he is jahil miskin. He is ignorant. He doesn't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from him. So he can talk about the skies and the earth and the clouds and the air and all kinds of things in a very eloquent way. But he doesn't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from him. يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْأَخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They only know the apparent things of this world, and they are unaware of what's in the hereafter. So being away from jahl or from ignorance, that means this is our original status unless we gain the knowledge, and then protecting ourselves from following our desire, which is such a difficult thing. And it doesn't mean that Islam would wipe the desires of the person, or we are asked not to have desires whatsoever. No, this is not what it means, but it means to subject our desires to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And never that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would want from the believers to suppress their desires completely, or to live a miserable life like some people might think. They think that if they apply the deen of Islam, they will be deprived from so many of their desires, so many of the things that makes them enjoy so much in this life. This is not true. Whether even if the person does not want to apply the deen, we know that, for example, in the Sharia, if the rules are being applied, no one is to go and search the homes of people if they're singing or if they're drinking or whatever there is. So even for such a person, that he still wants to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why is it very important for him or her to do that publicly? Right? And bother others when people have to do with freedom and so on. But the point is that nothing or never would the deen of Islam would bring any form of difficult or harsh on the lives of the people, unless a person would hate the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the real happiness and the real goodness is to follow this principle. And as anything in this life, you do something that you want for yourself to be good. It doesn't work like this in this ideal situation, because this life is full of opposite things to what is good. So the same way that you try to wear nice clothes, for example, you have to push away cold, for example. You have to push away certain things that you don't like. So the same thing that when we seek knowledge, when we want to apply the truth, it won't stay like this. There has to be evil, there has to be shaitan, there has to be ignorance, there has to be desire that would come, so that the believers will be steadfast and will be sincerely striving to follow the truth and to act according to the truth. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who follow the truth, and maybe this is something that we need to expand on more, inshallah ta'ala. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اتفضل.